Our Denver skyline is constantly changing. We have a few crazy projects going on right now in Denver that are expected to almost be done, are going to be done within the next year or two. And I just wanted to give you an update as to what's going on, because if you do own a condo in downtown Denver, this does affect you. Maybe not so much single family homes further out of the city, but we have a number of projects that are getting done. And if you're thinking about selling, if you're thinking about buying in downtown Denver, listen up. These projects are pretty wild. My name's Alex Saldana. I've been a local Denver agent here since 2010, helping buyers relocate, sellers relocate around the city. I just like to keep you up to date. So let's just dive into what is actually going on in our city today. What they're calling Block 172. The name now has not been officialized. This is just what the city called it while they were pulling their permits. So this is going to be 450 condo units, nearly 40-story tall building with two kind of towers here. So this is kind of their rendered drawing there. Of course, rooftop pools. This thing is going to be packed with amenities. This is what they're going for. Super packed amenities, apartment buildings. This is our condo building. Sorry. This is not going to be apartments. So this is going to be ownership. And I'm sure the HOA fees are going to be $1,000 a month or so or more, which is pretty common for buildings like this. And it's going to have everything you could possibly want. The renderings look beautiful as you go through. And they just started breaking ground a little bit. They need to do a new update because I think they're, on their second or third floor by now. And this is where this is getting built at. So it's right at kind of Glenarm and Broadway. So this is where the Populous is. And then a few blocks north on Glenarm and 18th here, you can actually see it here. Google Maps has the updated view. So you can see they're building the first couple of floors here, parking all around. This was just a parking lot before, which there was already a ton of around. And yeah, this is where they're going to be built. I'm not sure if they have many renderings here of it, but yeah, this is what it's going to be, ladies and gentlemen. Ground floor, it's still going to be 2 years off or so. And what's going to be a challenge here is how many units they're actually adding into the market. So they're going to have another 450 luxury condos going on the market. And this is kind of what's happening here. Just to show you. So we've got in downtown Denver, I've pulled up a map here of just pretty much the diagonal streets. Like anybody who knows Denver knows that like this area is basically downtown. Curtis Park, maybe not so much, but we're just looking specifically at condos, which you can see where there's active inventory right now. And today on the MLS, only active condos, we have 238 currently active. You're like, that's not too many, right? This is going to add 450 by itself. Well, there's something called an absorption rate, meaning how many condos actually sell every single month in this footprint. So how much inventory we have. Well, if we go and look at the amount pending in the last 30 days, we've had 26 under contract in 30 days. Currently active, we have 238. So that's pretty simple math. That's almost 10 months of inventory, which means it's a pretty aggressive buyer's market right now in the downtown footprint. So let's take a look at how many have closed in the last 30 days. And that'll give us an even better number because about 25% of all contracts fall apart. 19 have actually closed in the last 30 days. So that's even less. We've got more like 12 months of inventory on the market for condos in downtown. Now imagine if this building was complete. Now they come out in phases. I'm sure they've already sold, a good handful of these units off. But once this is completed, it's going to add another 450. According to this, if 19 closed last month in a 12-month period, we are selling approximately 228. That's almost 2 years of inventory in one building. Now there's other numbers that we're not quite seeing, because they do sell a lot of stuff off market. So maybe it's not that much, but maybe it's another 3 to 6 months worth of inventory in reality when the project is complete. Like that's a pretty big deal, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm interested to see how this is going to go and what this does to the downtown market. Like, are we oversaturated? Is this going to be a struggle for them to get out of these units? Because I'm sure they're going to be selling in the 600 to $1 million mark plus, right? Just based on history and build costs today. So we'll see. What do you guys think about this? Or do we need another huge skyrise condo building downtown? I don't know. Your opinion on that matters. Then we have this funky place. So this is going to be an apartment building, One River North. So this is a funky building. I'm sure you've seen this in the news. They claim that it's like a shape of a bird kind of cut out through the building. It's kind of wild, and it's going to be a bunch of outdoor gardens throughout this building. Really cool rooftop patios. Like, this is kind of a mix between the hotel we just saw and the last condo building we just saw. And they are making purely apartments out of this. These are not going to be condos. Again, heavy amenities. And I mean, this is like straight out of the Jetsons, right? I half expect to see the robot come by with a tray of drinks. This is kind of wild, actually. I haven't looked through all these pictures yet, so I'm seeing them for the first time with you. And I know they're rendering, so it's going to be different in real life. But again, how is this going to age in 20 to 30 years? I mean, even the renderings here, like, you can see the stucco work is, and I'm sure they did it intentionally to kind of have a texture to it, but how is this going to age in 20 to 30 years from now? Is this going to be cool, or is this just going to be one of those odd duck failed projects? Again, it's going to be state of the art amenities. And when you look at it, you can go on their website right now and you can look at, the different apartments that they're offering. And you can actually see on different floors, what's available. And they're not astronomical. You're talking a 2-bed, 2-bath place, 1,200 square feet for $4,000 a month. Yes, that is expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. But for a 2-bedroom with all these amenities downtown, like, on the cheap end, you're probably mid twos, 2,500. That's going to be for an older building with not as many amenities, not going to be nearly as nice, of course, not nearly as new. Now, you can get expensive. You can go, all the way up to 15,000, right? For some of their penthouses, which, I mean, at 2,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, that's a lot of money. I don't care which way you slice it. That is a lot of money. But these are going to be remarkable, beautiful places. But again, on the apartment side for rent, here's another statistic that y'all should look at. And this kind of ties into what our condo market is currently doing, which the condo market is struggling downtown. Days on market is getting up there. If you're trying to sell a condo in downtown, you know exactly what I mean. So I decided to go to Zillow, which there's a lot of places that you can look for rental properties on besides Zillow, but this is just one of them. So like apartments.com and rent.com and stuff like that, they're going to have, even more and different units available. So I just drew a map of the same outline that we were just looking at condos, but this is just condos for rent. And what I have is 3,000, just under 3,000 rentals available in downtown Denver. Like, that's a lot. So we can go over by Glenarm and 18th where one of those projects is getting done, and we can look at 8 units here, studio places going for $1,350 a month. Like, that's not horrible, 500 square feet, but hey, you're downtown, 1-bedroom places going for $1,700 a month. And this is a decent looking place. So how are these guys going to compete when you have so many units available on the market? I mean, $622 a month, like, that's dirt cheap. And this is a decent looking building. I know there's going to be a downside to it, but this is still a decent looking building for all intents and purposes, right? Like, for 622, $1,700, but still on a new building, I don't care if they put you in a shoebox for $622 a month. Like, that's a good deal in almost any city in the country, and you start looking closer and you're like, God, there's 33 units in this one building alone. So you release another few hundred on the market, and there's already 3,000 available downtown. There's and there's 300 for sale. There's 3,000 for rent. And right now, with mortgage rates being what they are at now 6.5% after this last week since they dropped, like rent is cheaper than buying right now in downtown because of HOAs. So who is going to be absorbing this inventory? This is a lot of units for rent. I don't know the turnover rate for rentals in downtown Denver. I will find it out though, because this is fascinating. This is a lot of units on the market, folks. This might be getting close to the end of the heyday for landlords in downtown Denver, but that's not a joke. Like, even if you hate landlords, doesn't matter. Like, that's not going to be good if the market crashes for rentals downtown. Like, that's going to make everything worse downtown. People already want to avoid downtown because of the homeless issues, but it's going to get even worse. So again, I'd love to hear what your take is on this building getting completed. That's going to be high-end rentals in an area where people are already struggling to rent out. And then we're going to get on to 1900 Lawrence. So this is a commercial building. This is an office building, 720,000 square foot office building right next to Coors Field. Okay. So what's interesting about this is, these buildings take a long time to put together and for these deals to happen. You're talking years just for the acquisition of the land. You're talking years to get it approved. You got to go to these board meetings. You got to have bigwig lawyers involved. Like, these are 5 to 10 year projects, right? And so this was started when 2015, maybe 2018 at the latest. And they're getting close to completion. But this is where it's going to be questionable as far as what is going to happen here. There's a lot of commercial available. So I went over to our buddies here at Beacon Real Estate, and they deal with more commercial. So right now, retail is struggling to find space available. Okay. But then we've also got office and industrial spaces. And what we're looking at here is a chart of vacancy rates. And this is from 2018, and this is for Denver. Okay. Now, what we can see is prior to COVID, we saw, and this gray line up top is office space. Okay. We saw an average vacancy rate of about 10%. Okay. So out of every year, you have about 1 month, a little bit more, that it's vacant. Okay. And that's just worked into their numbers. During COVID, as leases got canceled, people didn't renew their spaces. That number spiked up to 14. Now, post-COVID, you'd think, hey, that's going to normalize a little bit. Well, as projects get completed, more stuff comes on the market. What happens? Right? You have more inventory available. And this number has been steadily climbing. This is now up to almost 17% vacancy. So out of every year, you have approximately 2 months of the property being vacant. That has a huge impact. I mean, that's doubled basically from prior to COVID. So, you're running your numbers based on 10% vacancy rate that it's been for decades. And now all of a sudden that number nearly doubles on you. So what does that do long term? And are these owners more likely to give it up to the bank because it's a business decision? There's no emotional tie to an office building and a big conglomerates of lawyers and real estate firms and stuff like that come together to put these deals together. And when the numbers no longer make sense, they just bail, right? So do the projects go bankrupt? And then what happens? I don't know. There's a whole slew of stuff there that I don't even want to think about. I mean, heck, I was looking at some numbers in some areas where vacancy rates the last year were at 40% rates. So it'll be interesting to see with a massively big building. This is one of the biggest buildings, I think, built in 40 years in downtown Denver. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. These other lines that we're looking at, industrial space is another big one. Vacancy rates have started to climb there as well. Retail, the blue, has stayed really low. Multifamily, is starting to creep up a little bit on the vacancy rate, but stayed pretty flat overall. So we'll pay attention to it and see what this does. Rent growth, this is what's interesting, is pretty much the opposite happens, except with multifamily. Look at this. Rent growth has gone from prior to COVID, being 2 to 7% growth per year for industrial space has been advancing pretty well. Retail space has actually been declining a little bit. Multifamily, look at this wild roller coaster. During COVID, man, multifamily went through the roof in rent growth and then it just fell like a rock. So these numbers are interesting. Commercial is not for the faint of heart whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens with some of these projects. But again, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your take on what's going on in downtown Denver. Are these people nuts for building these projects, or is this just part of what makes a market a market? And if you have any questions, again, feel free, reach out. Let me know. My phone number is down here below. Happy to help at any time. And if you missed it, you want to watch this video on the July number updates. Take a deep dive into what's going on and how much your house has either increased or decreased in value.